What's going on, Duke fans? Jack and JD, and we have the first of hopefully 6 NCAA tournament previews. The tournament that we're concerned about has been trimmed from 5 teams to 4, and Mount St. Mary's has beat American, and so that will be Duke's opponent for the first round of the tournament. Mount St. Mary's coach, as they showed on the broadcast, was an assistant for Shaka Smart on the VCU team that went on the run all the way to the Final Four. So, he's got some experience. This is a Mount St. Mary's team that's had a number of injuries that I learned all about tonight. And it's a team that had a couple of good, athletic 6'8", 6'9" forwards that were able to take advantage against American without their size underneath. But it's going to be a tall task for Mount St. Mary's against Duke. And that's what we're here to go over and discuss, Duke and their pathway here in the rest of the tournament. JD, let's go Duke.
Let's go Duke. Let's go Duke. Look, this is the first game. We're ready to rock and roll. Friday, 250, 240, somewhere
Well,
around there.
250 scheduled, but this is the NCAA tournament, so it all depends upon when does the first game end.
This is true. But we're going to have a lot of fun. This is the 4 best days. I love the Final Four. I love the championship. But you and I have always said it's the first 2 rounds, which are just you have now on YouTube TV split screen, so you can watch all 4 games at once at home. You don't have to be in a sports bar. It's just there's just so much fun, and in filling out brackets, it's so hard to avoid chalk, especially with 1 and 2. But we know, we just know that no matter how smart we think we are, you're you're gonna go. Could you believe what happened in this team upset that team in a last second, and then they show the guys going absolutely bonkers. They're jumping up and down, and they show the other team they're like crying and they're all upset. They're done dancing. So my favorite time of year, Jack. Just my favorite time of year.
And I'm with you. I think there's going to be a lot of chalk this year in your brackets. And I think, the one seeds are just. It's hard for me to remember when the last time where I felt like all 4 1 seeds were this good. And the 2 seeds, are all really good. Like, I had to look it up today because I couldn't remember. Like last year, I kept saying to myself, there was 3 great teams and there was everyone else. And there was UConn and Purdue and Houston. And then I couldn't remember who the last 4 seed was last year. Maybe it was an intentional mental block because after I looked it up, it was North Carolina. And I just couldn't remember that. But I would think, last year's North Carolina team was really good. But I would think this year's Tennessee, um, even Alabama, I would take St. John's over last year's North Carolina team. And those are the 2 seeds. So, but to your point, I'm also sure that having said all of this, it's not going to play out this way, and there's going to be major upsets.
It's
But
why it's called March Madness.
my thought, what I think is going to happen, which probably won't, but what I think is going to happen is that the upsets we will see this year are going to be from those seeds between 10 and let's say 13, maybe 14. But I think there's going to be a couple of double digit seeded teams that make a run to the Sweet 16. I actually do think one of those is going to be North Carolina. They've got some momentum. And while I hate it for North Carolina, it's good for the ACC. But this Duke team, I think, with I got to make sure I keep my head correctly lined up here for all of the people watching on YouTube. This Duke team, I based off what Coach Shire has said, I do think Cooper Flag is going to be back Friday, and that is very exciting because it was one of the potential, not one of the, it was him and Malik Brown, the potential concerns for Duke. I only have three real concerns for this Duke team going into the tournament. Um, but I'll let you. Do you want me to go there? It was Cooper Flag, whether he was going to be healthy, Malik Brown, whether we can get him back, and the third is, does somebody have a complete game like Terrence Edwards did for about 20 minutes in the Louisville game, where it just, there was a play where Sion James was standing like in his face and he rose and fired and knocked down the three. And that could happen, but it's going to take, I think, somebody going for close to 40 in terms of an individual effort to beat this Duke team.
So we always look at it as a 6 game winning streak in North Carolina's pathway to cutting down the nets. It would be a 7 game winning streak, but um, it's just not easy. And the difference has always been in terms of how Coach, well, Coach K always used to approach it as they were each, there were 3 4 game or
14, 2 game.
yeah, well, and then they play each other. So 3 games actually is what it is. But he would look at it as little tournaments.
They're, okay, I see what you're saying.
Two
Yes.
two
Yep.
guys
Yep.
play each other.
Yep.
Winners then play each other, and he would say they're tournaments in and of themselves, and that you should never look to the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, let alone the Final Four and the championship game. And it was always an interesting way to look at it. I think that um, it might serve Duke's purpose as well. I know that the indication is that we're going to see Coop sometime this weekend for a couple of minutes, or he's ready to play the whole thing. Don't quite know for the first 2 games. Uh, Malik Brown, we're not seeing this weekend. And as far as I'm concerned, up until the likely matchup between Duke and Alabama, that's when I'd like to see him on the court. And I think we'll be okay for the first 3 games. But then if it is Duke and Alabama, I'd love to have Malik Brown. So, Coach Shire, if you're listening, rest them. It's okay. We're going to get there. You rested both of them and you won the ACC. So here you go. You have a chance. But my expectations are for nothing less than cutting down the nets. And that one shining moment has the most clips about Duke.
Yeah, and Coach Shire said, I think it was Jay Billis who asked him, are you going to carry that tradition from Coach K? And he said he would, and he kind of jokingly said that was like one of the few that they were going to keep going. Um, one of the few from Jay Billis's time. So it was more of a dig at Jay Billis than it was at Coach K for sure. And I think with that in mind, we should, keep this podcast to just the first weekend and forget about, for right now, what lies ahead. And so this Mount St. Mary's team, they had a really good performance tonight against American, where in the first handful of minutes, it was like neither team could miss. They were knocking, like, Mount St. Mary's came down within the first, I think it was like 6 seconds, and made a three. It was like rapid fire offense. Now the defense, you could poke some holes in the defense, but they were led by Jetty Cordelia and Dola Adebayo, who I can't tell you guys exactly why, but I saw the name a couple of days ago. I said, Adebayo, is he related to Bam? And I went and looked, and from what I could tell, he's not. So that's my great nugget that I have for you guys today, which is pretty meaningless. Then there's those two guys inside, and then Dallas Hobbs, who is making plays for them in terms of the 3-point shooting. Xavier Lipscomb and Javon Irvin round out their starting five. Irvin was their leading assist guy tonight with five. And then off the bench, they really played six guys, but it was Arlandis Keys, who was their last guy off the bench. Not a particularly big team. They've got the two guys at 6'8", 6'9", but other than that, their guards are between 6 foot to 6'3". So there's certainly the guards, as it's been most of the season for Duke. The guards for Duke are going to have a big size advantage, and in this game, so will the. I mean, come on, Malwatch has a size advantage in 99% of games, but he will
He
have a.
has a size advantage over Patrick Gumba.
He certainly does. The only game I could think of where he didn't. I guess there's two. It would be early on in the season against Arizona, where they had Montigas Crivas, who's at 7'2" as well, and then the game against Kansas against Hunter Dickinson. But other than that, Malawatch has had a height advantage. Actually, come to mind, I think Ryan Matumbo is up there around 7'1". So maybe 90%, 99. But with
And does Ryan Matumbo, does he have a relationship to?
He does. He does. So he missed part of the he missed the beginning of the season in part, I believe, because they gave him some time because of the passing of Dikembe Mutombo. I don't remember if it's his son or if it's his nephew, but they are related. Um, so the reason I bring that up is Mount St. Mary's had a lot of success in this game scoring inside. I think that's going to be tough to do against Duke if Duke plays the way that they are capable of. And it was interesting. I'm sure a lot of you guys caught it. I was listening to, they had an episode of the podcast, and they had Sion and Khan on with Mr. Foster. And they were both Sion and Khan were talking about how the way they played during the ACC tournament. And I'm going to use the word they used. This isn't me, but they said at times they were soft. They felt like the start of the Georgia Tech game, it wasn't them. They felt like the first half against Louisville, they were soft. And they didn't like the way they played in the second half against North Carolina. Um, Go ahead.
So I have a question for you, which is, so our depth, our obviously came through. We held on in the UNC game, but the first game of the ACC tournament was against Georgia Tech, and I remember I was sitting in a having lunch and I was watching it, and I kept looking up at the score, and I said, "That can't be right." This was before the injuries, and I'm like, we can't seem to score. Do you expect that with all of this expectation upon Duke to be, we're not the only ones as just fans of Duke that are going to have their bracket with Duke winning it all. Um, and obviously there'll be a healthy amount that will pick Auburn, um, and we'll talk at a future show about Florida and Houston. But it's possible that either they come out flat because of the excitement of the first round. They, boy, I'd hate to ever see the second half of the UNC game again, where you had a 20-point lead and you just couldn't hold it. And I guess the Louisville game had its moments where they were soft, but then they clearly came around and won the game. So, do you think there's a chance that we could start off soft?
So, look, I think um, one of the advantages that Georgia Tech had in the first game was they had played the day before. And I think there's value in that in these tournaments. And I think that will help Mount St. Mary's. I think it's also important to remember while Georgia Tech's record wasn't great overall, they had won, I think it was like 9 of 13 going into that game. And they had wins this year over Clemson and Louisville, if I remember correctly. Um, and last year they were a below 500 team and beat Duke, North Carolina, and I think Clemson or another one of the top teams in the ACC. So they're just a weird team. I don't know what else to say about that.
That was a
Um,
guest appearance from our dog Jamie.
she likes to make appearances. I think it's her, and the show notes on the season. I think it's her fourth time, um, fourth appearance on the show. But with that being said, I think Mount St. Mary's has a chance to start the game strong, having already played in the tournament. They've got that experience. Um, I think that chance is very low. I think actually Duke is going to
Low.
start. Yeah, I think Duke is going to start strong and fast. And I think part of what happened in the Georgia Tech game is Georgia Tech came in very hungry, and Duke. Because remember, this before the injuries happened, they were struggling. 0
Yeah,
for 13 from three. They were down. I think as much as 11 or maybe more, 13 points in that game against Georgia Tech, and
I
they
think at
didn't.
one point 26-12 or
Yeah, you're right.
something
You're right.
crazy.
14,
Something
14.
crazy.
And that was before
The
certainly
injury.
Cooper's injury, right? And it
Yeah.
was right around the time of Malik's. Malik's may have been in the midst of that or slightly after. Um, and so I feel like in that game they kind of got off to a slow start, and Georgia Tech was more ready to play. And I think that's a lesson that they have learned now and understand the importance of starting off strong. And I think they also, whether they have Cooper or not for Friday, they've now learned how to play without him, which is really important. And I think the one thing that is really important about Cooper is, going back to, what was it, 2010 with Kyrie Irving. And obviously, different circumstances. Kyrie had missed the majority of the season. They brought him back for the NCAA tournament. And when he came back, Duke had found a rhythm without him, and it kind of messed up Duke's um, just like I would say their ability to play with one another. Like it didn't feel the chemistry is the word I was kind of searching for there. Wasn't quite the same. And the thing that I think is awesome about Cooper is he comes back. It's not going to affect the chemistry. What it will affect though is the number of shots that guys get, how much time they have with the ball, because obviously Cooper's going to have the ball more often. But with Cooper on the court, guys are going to get easier shots, and he's going to help the defense. And so I think there's much more pluses, and we spent most of the year playing with Cooper, so I think it's just about going back into those roles rather than making a big adjustment.
Uh, I I'm in the camp that doesn't necessarily say he has to play, certainly in this first game. And you and I have debated that about, there is value to having him on the court and getting some reps and in even the first game, whether it's just for 10 or 15 minutes or just giving him as much time as he needs. And we've laughed that it'll be uh, Jose the trainer, it'll be Coach Shire, but most importantly, his parents that are going to say what to do with this once in a generation player. I uh, I think the tournament, ACC tournament, gave everyone else an incredible lift and a sense of, because we've seen this happen too, where Cooper goes down and they go, oh boy. And now that's kind of erased in the sense of we can play. Now, that's why I always say there's this, if we go on the run, I think we're going to go on. This is going to be two different tournaments for Duke. There's going to be the first three games where I think we'll be fine getting to the Elite Eight, and then the next three games where each opponent from the Elite Eight, Final Four, and the finals are going to be excellent, excellent teams.
That's fair. Um, but for today, we got to just focus on the teams in our tournament, our mini tournament for right now. And the one thing that I think Duke will be able to take advantage of in this game against Mount St. Mary's, and speaking of somebody who has found another level to their confidence, is Patrick Gangba, who is going to have a favorable matchup along with Kama Maluach. But the difference is, I think in this game, especially because even if Cooper plays, I don't expect him to play heavy minutes, right? I think this is a good opportunity to keep Gangba going. I keep my head aligned here. And so,
Keep Gangba going. I like it.
yes.
It could be
Eh,
it could be a t-shirt.
I mean, depending on how the tournament goes, it might just be. And, I think the plan should be when Gangwa's in the game, they just don't have the size to match up with Duke. And with Malawach, you're gonna, we know look for the lob. I think at this point in the year, we know they're gonna look for the lob the first play. They tend to do that, 7 times out of 10, right? They look for Malawach on that first play. I think when Gangba's in the game, it's an important opportunity to try to post him up, and let him go to work because he showed off some really nice moves in the Louisville game, and he's had some moments before that. But I think he's playing with a lot of confidence right now, and his not only is his ability to score really high, and his skill level, but he's also a really good passer. And so if they send a double team, I feel very confident that Gangba will be able to find, if not the open shooter, the person to, like the hockey assist, to be able to swing it around the perimeter to get the open guy. And so, and then the third positive outcome would be Gangba gets fouled. And I think we could put Mount St. Mary's in the bonus pretty early on, in this game with Duke's size and aggressiveness between Gangba, Sion James, and especially Con Knipple, because we know he's going to drive to the basket, and if he's got it, he's going to go right up, and if he doesn't, he's going to pump fake and most likely draw a foul. And so I think that Mount St. Mary's could be in the bonus pretty quickly here, or Duke
So
could be in the bonus, I should say.
um, I have a play for the very first play of the game.
Draw it
Since
up.
okay, so here's what happens. Uh, we have Malowitz jumping center. He's going to control the tap. And instead of tapping it backwards so that they can take the ball from the backcourt, he taps it to, if Coop is in the game and is in the circle, and Coop's got clearly some size as well, Gangba taps it to Coop.
Wait, wait. Pause. This
Sorry,
is
not Gangba. Malawach taps it to Coop,
Yep.
and Coop simply, instead of catching the ball, just does it over his head, sends it down the court to a streaking Tyrese Proctor. Open the game with a bucket. That's how you do it, with lots of height. And that's the play call that I want to see. I've got a definite idea in mind. I don't think we need to have Mal tip it back to the backcourt, and then we'll slowly bring the ball up. Let's just get on the scoreboard right away from the jump.
All right, fun question for you. Come on, Malawach. I've kind of described. I know you haven't watched Mount St. Mary's, and I mean, really, neither have I, other than this game here tonight. Um, Over under for Come on, Malawach, 1.5 blocks. And in the comments, I'm put in your comment as well. What do you guys think? So 1.5 over under, JD.
3.
So that would be over, but we'll work. Okay, 3. I would say 2. I would take the over as well. Now, one more question. This is sort of related to this game, but it's all more about the ACC as a whole. We've got controversially 4 teams now of the ACC that are going to be in the round of 64. How many teams make the Sweet 16? And I'm going to set the same number at 1.5. Over under.
So it would take UNC winning 3 games in order to make it, right?
Yep.
Clemson and Louisville and Duke. It, at 3 of them somehow will make it to the Sweet 16. And if UNC keeps this miraculous uh, effort where they just had a beatdown against San Diego State and should do quite well in their first game, I think. Um, I think, you know, maybe, as you've said, we're ACC people. Maybe we can elbow out of the way a couple of though Texas is playing right now. I think we can elbow out of the way some SEC teams and get some love for the ACC. And I know you've said this to me, and I can't quite get there, but yes, it would be nice if 4 ACC teams make it to the field of 16, even
Yeah,
though
that
we're starting with 14 SEC teams. So I'd like to give their likelihood of getting 4 teams to the Sweet 16 a little bit higher than
certainly.
the ACC.
Yeah, it's just I think Duke's gonna make it. Clemson, I think, has a decent path. Then I would say North Carolina, and I think Louisville just got a horrible seed. I'm still shocked that they were an 8 seed instead of a. I think they could have easily been a 6. Um,
I know, and
but
as an 8 seed, you play an 8-1, 8-9, and then you're playing the 1 seed. So
it's
it will
tough.
be tough. It will be tough.
Um, all right, JD. Score prediction. And if you've enjoyed this video so far, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 1,600 subscribers by the start of the Sweet 16. So help us get there. Go ahead, JD. What's your score prediction?
So, based on the breakdown in the ACC tournament and thinking that Coop isn't, I'm leaning towards very minimal minutes or not playing. And the start of the Georgia Tech game, I'm going to say that a 16 versus a 1 could be like how we blew Illinois out by 40. And it could be a really, like, I can't believe this is happening. This is like a 5-point game. So I'm going to just go split the difference and say we win by 20. And our defense is really superb. And There's a little first round jitters in the offense. So I got it at 75-55.
All right, we were close on Mount St. Mary's score. I'm much closer to. Make sure to drop your score predictions if I didn't say this before. If I did, I apologize. But drop them in the comments. I'm very curious what you guys think for this game. I have Mount St. Mary's at 58 points, so we're 3 points apart. But I'm much closer to the Illinois game. I got Duke at 100. 100. The Mount St. Mary's. The one thing I noticed in this, gotta keep my head aligned here. They played at a fast pace, and they're going to be undersized. I don't see how they're going to be able to play slow against Duke. I think that's a disaster. So I think they're going to try to score before Duke's defense is able to set up. And I think that's going to lead to Duke just being able to get some easy buckets on the other end. And more importantly, I think Duke after the ACC tournament, they've whether it's with Cooper or not, I think a lot of guys, to your point from earlier, have found another level of confidence coming into this game. No pun intended. But I think Con Knipple and Tyrese Proctor have a new level of confidence, and I think Isaiah Evans has a good chance in this game to find a few 3 pointers as well, which will take us to that 100-point mark. And my ultimate goal is at the end of this game, because of the margin, it's Spencer Hubbard who gets the last bucket for Duke.
I certainly hope you're correct. It would be highly entertaining to watch an first round Duke blowout,
Well, for
and
us.
well, there's gonna be a lot of people picking Duke. So
Well, there will be a lot of people rooting against Duke, as we know, and so
that's the funny thing. We somebody should have an analysis like when Duke is a heavy favorite, as opposed to in general rooting against our boys. But if Duke is a heavy favorite, maybe there are a bit more rooting for Duke.
yeah, there's probably some people who hate Duke, but they picked him in their bracket, so now yeah, that's a good point. All right. We will see you guys post game Friday. I guess early evening. Would you say about 5 o'clock? Yeah, early evening. That's a fair way of putting that. So immediately after the Mount St. Mary's Duke game, we will have the post game live. Hope to be 1-0 in the NCAA tournament at that point, and looking ahead to either Mississippi State or Baylor, which will be the game before the Duke Mount St. Mary's game. So if you guys are interested in checking out Duke's potential competition, all goes well, knock on wood, that'll be a good game to check out, along with, all the other games that are going to be happening over the next 4 games. We'll have you covered on the Duke side of things, and we'll see you guys soon. Peace.